You're not afraid of dying young. You're terrified of living long enough to meet the person you've become. We spend our youth acting like we're the lead in a tragedy that ends at 30, only to find out we're actually in a long, quiet drama that's just getting started. I'm Jay, and this is Jay Within. And maybe it's time we talk about why you're stealing from a stranger who shares your name. Think about the last time you bought something you didn't need. Maybe it was a gadget that promised to fix a problem you didn't have, or a pair of shoes that felt like a new personality for 15 minutes. In that moment, the air in the room changed. Your pulse quickened. You felt alive. But here's the thing. You weren't just spending money. You were taking a withdrawal from a bank account that doesn't belong to you yet. Psychologists have found something unsettling about the way our brains are wired. When you think about yourself 10, 20, or 40 years from now, your brain doesn't recognize that person as you. On a functional MRI, the part of your brain that lights up when you think about your future self is the same part that lights up when you think about a complete stranger, a person you've never met, someone whose problems aren't your concern. And that's the loophole we live in. We treat our future like a guest room in a house we're never planning to visit. We leave the lights on, we let the pipes rust, and we throw the trash on the floor because, hey, we won't be the ones cleaning it up. But the house is yours, and the stranger in the mirror, he's already on his way. We tell ourselves this lie that we're living for the moment. It sounds poetic, it sounds brave, but usually it's just a polished way of saying we're afraid of the silence that comes when the dopamine wears off. We've turned YOLO into a financial strategy, acting as if the world ends the moment we turn 35. But what happens when it doesn't? What happens when you wake up at 65 and the future is no longer a concept? It's just today. And you realize the person you were at 25 didn't just live their best life, they defaulted on yours. There's a comfort in the idea of a short life. It's the ultimate exit strategy. You tell yourself, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And suddenly, every reckless decision feels like an act of rebellion. You buy the car you can't afford, you skip the savings account. You treat your health like a rental you're planning to crash. Because in your head, the story ends before the bill comes due. But have you ever stopped to look at the math? Statistically, you are far more likely to grow old than you are to die young. Science is getting better at keeping us alive, even when we haven't been particularly kind to ourselves. The gamble isn't that you'll die at 40 and beat the system. The gamble is that you'll live to 85 and have to face the person you robbed. We call it nihilism, but let's call it what it really is, a defensive crouch. We say we don't care about the future because the future feels heavy. It feels like a mountain of responsibility we aren't ready to climb, so we pretend the mountain isn't there. We convince ourselves that future me will be a different species, someone smarter, someone who somehow has it all figured out, someone who doesn't mind living on the scraps we left behind. But that version of you doesn't exist. There is no magical transition. There's no moment where a responsible adult suddenly inhabits your body and fixes the mess. There's only you, older, possibly tired, and definitely wondering why the 20-something version of yourself thought a pair of designer sneakers was worth a decade of peace of mind. It's a strange kind of cruelty, isn't it? To treat your oldest, most vulnerable self as an enemy. To take the compound interest, the only real magic we have in this world, and set it on fire for a weekend of status. You aren't living in the moment when you do that. You're just defaulting on the only person who is guaranteed to be there when the party is over. I saw it once, in a way that I can't quite shake. An old man sitting alone at a small plastic table in a food court. The lighting was that harsh, clinical, fluorescent white that makes everything look a little more tired than it actually is. He was counting coins, not in a hurried way, but with a slow, agonizing precision. He had a small coffee, and a folded-up newspaper, and he was staring at the pile of silver on the table like it was a puzzle he couldn't solve. He wasn't just poor. He looked betrayed. And for a second, I didn't see an old man. I saw the 25-year-old version of him standing right behind his shoulder. The younger man was wearing a suit that cost more than the old man's rent. He was laughing, shouting for another round of drinks, telling his friends that money is just paper and you can't take it with you. The younger version was having the time of his life, but the older version was the one paying for the party 40 years later. It was a haunting image, because we all have that ghost standing behind us. We think of our future self as some kind of stoic philosopher who won't mind the sacrifice. We think they'll understand why we needed that vacation or that car or that dopamine hit right now. But they aren't a philosopher, they're a person. They're a person who might have knees that ache, or eyes that are getting tired, or a heart that just wants to sit in a quiet garden without wondering if they can afford the heating bill. And when that version of you looks back, they won't remember the vibe of the expensive dinner you had in 2024. They'll only feel the weight of the freedom you traded away. We've turned self-care into an act of consumption. We think taking care of ourselves means buying things, but true self-care is an act of time travel. It's reaching forward and making sure the person you are becoming is safe. Because the most expensive thing you will ever buy isn't a house or a car. It's the ability to say no when you're 70. And right now, you're selling that no for a yes that you'll forget by next Tuesday. There's a word for this, but it's not spending. It's defaulting. We talk about debt like it's something between us and a bank, a contract on a piece of paper with a signature at the bottom. But the most dangerous debt you'll ever carry is the one you owe to the version of you that hasn't arrived yet. And the interest rate on that debt, it's not measured in percentages, it's measured in dignity. We've built a culture that worships the now because the now is profitable for everyone except you. The algorithm wants your attention now. The store wants your money now. The lifestyle wants your validation now. And they all whisper the same thing. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow is a long way off. But the mistake, the one that's truly impermissible, is believing that your youth gives you a license to be cruel to your old age. We trade compound interest, the literal multiplication of time into freedom, for ephemeral status. We choose to look wealthy today at the cost of being secure tomorrow. Think about that. You are taking the strongest, most capable version of yourself, the one with the energy to work, to pivot, to build, and you are using it to undermine the weakest, most vulnerable version of yourself. It's like stealing the walking cane from an old man because you wanted to use the wood for a campfire. You're warm for an hour, but he's stuck for the rest of his life. Is that who you want to be? The person who sacrificed their own future for a highlight reel that feels empty the moment the screen goes dark. We think we're being free spirits when we ignore our finances, but true freedom isn't the ability to buy whatever you want today. True freedom is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that when you are tired, when your body finally says enough, you won't have to beg for your survival from a world that has already moved on. So, how do you fix a relationship with someone you haven't met yet? It doesn't start with a spreadsheet. It doesn't start with a lecture on the stock market or a vow of poverty. It starts with an apology, a quiet admission to the person you are becoming that you've been treating them like a ghost. I've been trying this lately. When I'm tempted to trade a piece of my future for a moment of noise, I pause. I look at the screen. I feel the pulse of the now. And then I imagine that older man at the table. I imagine him looking at me across the decades, not with anger, but with a quiet, tired hope. I realize that every dollar I save, every bit of compound interest I protect, isn't just money. It's a gift of time. It's an hour of sleep he'll get to have. It's a doctor's visit he won't have to stress over. It's the ability for him to sit in the sun and just be. You don't have to stop living today to save tomorrow. You just have to stop stealing. Start seeing your future self as a friend, someone who is going to need your help, someone who is counting on you to be their hero while you still have the strength to be one. Because one day, you'll be the one sitting in that chair. You'll be the one looking back at 2024, and in that moment, you won't care about the shoes or the car or the vibe. You will only care if the younger version of you loved you enough to let you be free. The mistake is impermissible, but it's also avoidable. You are the only person who can save you. Don't let yourself down. If this felt like a conversation you needed to have, subscribe. Let's keep walking through the mist together. See you within.